Hello everybody, thanks for dropping by and welcome to Star Citizen. Before we get too far into anything, I'm going to give this guy a chance to talk because he likes to talk.
Hi! You like it? It's pretty nice, right? Took about a week of stitching images off the spectrum. Anyway, as for why I brought you here, long story short, people with problems pay me to find solutions. If an operator needs some cover, I find someone to turn out the lights. The Nine Tails need a package delivered, no questions, I find someone to deliver it. Some Griff needs to be taught a hard lesson, I find someone to teach it. Now, what I'm hoping is that sometimes that someone I find is going to be you. For example, I have this little job here that needs doing. Think you'd be interested?
This guy is just so creepy. I mean, not even taking the fact that he's a giant holographic floating head, but he seems to be trying to act personable, which just makes it even worse. Yeah, he's the guy that pretty much if I saw him on a subway, I would hold my kid a little closer and try not to make eye contact. Even if he wasn't a giant floating holographic head, that is. He, of course, is Ruto, the second quest giver who beckons to you for some unknown reason to come visit him at Grim Hex, so he can send you off to go do some really shady things for him. This last episode of Calling All Devs had some really interesting information in it, starting off with the purchasing cargo mechanics. Now, I would agree right now that the purchasing mechanics is very unintuitive, and quite frankly, a lot of times you have to go fly off to your destination to find out what they're selling things for before you embark upon actually buying it, and then just hoping that the price is going to be the same when you're going to be trying to sell it later on, which isn't always the case. So it does have a tendency to feel a little bit almost like gambling when you're trying to buy and sell stuff. It made me immeasurably happy to hear that they realize all these things, and what their goal was to do was to get the bulk of the cargo buying and selling mechanic in the game, and they could start fine-tuning it from that point on. And they were planning on doing this by adding a mechanic into your mobi-glass, whereas you could connect to your star map and look at all your various destinations that you're going to be going to and actually check the state of the economy in each and every one of those areas before you left. So you could go to a place that you find sells something really low, purchase it, then get on your mobi-glass, connect to your star map, and look around and find a place that's going to buy it for the highest possible amount. This is also going to be a very key component in setting up your trade routes. I still have a bit of foundational work yet to do, but it is coming. So don't ask me on an ETA for that feature, because I have no idea. And excuse me just for 1 second while I set up our destination. I want to get this going before the pirates catch wind of our presence. There we go, all set. Another good question was about the radar in our ships. Now, some of them have a 2D radar system and other ones have a 3D radar. And ideally, I personally like the 2D radar better for right now. I think it's a lot more functional, it's very easy to use, and I think the 3D radar can be a little confusing and it's not very effective as far as what it shows, what and where it is around you just at a glance. You have to literally look at it to pick out details. And the question was, are we, as the pilot, going to be able to swap out one for the other depending on which one we prefer? The answer to this was a disappointing no, but with a caveat. You like that word? I like it too. So the caveat being that in the future they're planning to use their render-to-texture tech to project the 3D radar and display it as if it were a 2D image. So if you don't like your 3D radar, you can choose to have it appear as if it were 2D. Which to me is kind of the same thing, even though technically it isn't, it is in spirit. The entire last half of the Calling All Devs episode was dedicated to electronic warfare. Specifically, they were talking about how e-warfare is going to eventually include things like targeting computers, communications jamming, EMP, as well as other forms of distortion damage, and hacking, which is going to be a function of the Vanguard Harbinger. After they've developed out the EMP feature and how distortion damage is handled, the focus is going to go towards developing ways to hacking into avionics of another ship and overriding their ship's computers in various ways. So you can open their door and enter without having to physically damage it, or take over the flight computer and control it remotely, which sounds very exciting, and actually something that might be fun to do to another ship that you have in your fleet, that you could use as either a decoy or for a number of other reasons. There's also going to be security against this, so that players could really get good at making their ship unhackable, and consequently you could also have people who end up being masters at hacking. They also want to allow you to jam signals, preventing communication, disrupting a defender's ability to coordinate attacks, or from calling in for more help. In the case of something like the Herald, they talked about why would someone physically transfer data like the Herald does when sending it from point to point is so much faster and convenient. This is because the data that they're transporting is supposed to be incredibly sensitive and of a secret nature, so much so that it could not be risked being sent over open comms. In this case, jamming the ship would prevent the Herald pilot from destroying the data that you're trying to nab or ejecting it into space to prevent it from getting into enemy hands. Lastly, they address the EMP issue that exists with certain ships like the Saber Raven and the Warlock. The way these ships have operated has raised more than a few very valid concerns with how EMP weapons currently function in the game. The reason why EMP was such a problem in 3.0 revolved around the conversion of the ship's items to the 2.0 system. EMP does a very specific kind of damage that's being called distortion, and that type of damage wasn't properly set up on the ship's various types of components. So EMP attacks were doing massive amounts of damage to ships that weren't capable of coping with it. Not only have these values been tuned, but going forward in the future, the Raven and Warlock are going to take a lot longer to charge up their EMP fields. These attacks are also going to require a lot more energy to do, so that to prep the EMP to fire, you're going to need to sacrifice shield performance, and it's also going to disable your weapons. So these pilots are really going to have to commit to firing the EMP. The radius of this blast has also been tuned so that you're going to have to get much closer to larger targets if you're going to successfully affect its ship's components. And finally, they really increased the cooldown time between EMP blasts to roughly somewhere around 3 minutes. So there'll be no more spamming attacks from Ravens and Warlock owners. All of these changes to the EMP feature are not only going in 3.1, but are already present in the current 3.1 Evocati build. So all of us non-Raven and Warlock owners can look forward to that change, which will be coming in a few weeks. So I'm going to leave you with some final thoughts about the Ruto mission, which I've had playing in the background this whole episode. Now he is a little different than Eckhart, where he just straight up wants you to go out and assassinate people. And in this particular mission, he wants you to go out, assassinate a guy, and then go bring back a box with you. It's fun and different, and definitely feels a lot more piratey than the other missions do. So I'm down, I'm looking forward to doing some more. And this mission, like most of them, are just handcrafted for the Cutlass Black or the Freelancer, so just keep that in mind before you embark on any of these. And with that, I'm going to bring this episode to an end. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Star Citizen, and I hope you'll drop by again. Bye, everybody.